You be careful out there with things wrapped, whatever it is, here's a general basic guide then as a takeaway from our conversation this morning. If it's wrapped in cling film, maybe give it a wide berth in Lisbon, right?
If people shows you a photograph before, they always look better than what it is in real life.
True.
So
that's true. So be careful of
that
little
applies
packages.
to many things.
All right, and love to Ian as well. We'll see you both, I hope.
Yeah, Ian has been arrested, I'm afraid. So as soon as he gets released from jail, he will be with us.
Yeah, give him my best. And if you need a Gumper whip round for the bail money, just let us know. Okay. All right. Take care. See you. Bye for now. And you know what? We're going to keep the applause going. Let's do that one more time and bring Cordelia onto the screen. Hola, bon dia. ¿Cómo estás?
Bon dia.
And thank you, Cordelia, for your additional commentary when it comes to touring around Lisbon. I don't think you live there. You're up near me on the Silver Coast, aren't you?
Yeah, we live in Caldas da Rainha, which is about an hour from Lisbon. But we've been into Lisbon a few times. We go pretty regularly. And then when people come to town, they always want to go to Lisbon.
Yeah. Okay. And what are your tips? I think you were saying that for singles and couples, the sort of tips that Fabrizio had there were pretty good. But with kids, it's a little bit more challenging to find the time.
Yeah, it's just harder to find those off the beaten path places in Lisbon. And like he was saying, I mean, there's less of them because the rents have gone up. And so a lot of those old timey restaurants can't afford to be in Lisbon anymore. So you do see a lot more of the big glitzy, touristy, expensive places. But sometimes you're just a tourist and you're just in the tourist part of town and you just got to eat at the place with the laminated menu with photographs on it. And you just kind of got to just be like, this is my life today. Tomorrow I'll go eat at a little local, restaurant. But today we're here. And
I've been in that situation, even in my own hometown. I think it was last year's season. We were walking past with the kids one evening, and it was that whole thing we talked about: the little portions of olives, cheese, sardine paste, all covered in cling film. The smell of pizza. The waiters in their finely pressed white shirts and their black strides trousers, and they hustle you in and sit you down. And it is one of the most expensive experiences as well, because all those little things add up. But it is, maybe do it once and then you know what you're up against.
You do. And, I come with 2 teenage boys usually when I go touristing. So those kids can eat. We have to, I'm like, okay, because a lot of times the couvert, which is what they call that, cling film thing at the beginning, it comes with 1 piece of bread. And my boys are just like, where's the rest of the bread?
More bread. Nice pow.
Like eating our bread, eating their bread. I'm like, bring more. I know it's €1 per piece or whatever. It's ludicrous, but just bring it on.
No, I get it. And while we're on that subject, how's it been having teenagers in Portugal? What sort of foods do they like? And are they liking the experience generally of being in Portugal?
So we actually have, I was a little glib, but we actually have a 13-year-old who lives here with us.
Yeah.
And we have a 21-year-old who lives in the United States. And so he's been to visit a few times already. So we try to see him every quarter-ish, if we can, whether he comes here or we go there.
Yeah.
So my younger son he's a very adventurous eater. And so he's tried every kind of dead animal that he can get his little hands on. So he's tried goat, he's tried cuttlefish, squid,
snails,
of course, octopus. I mean, just all of that. And we've had bunny rabbit, which I could not eat bunny rabbit, but they gobbled it up.
Yeah.
But my husband without realizing it, we got it family style. And so he just dished it out. And he accidentally put the head on my plate.
Oh dear, that's could have
put you. It was like a little bunny face with teeth.
Those eyes.
I was like, I can't eat that.
Yeah. No, fair enough. No, I can understand. Yes, I can understand how you might draw the line there. Apparently, you can, if you need hungry teen boys, you can buy them at Intermarché. Although, I'm not quite sure what James means there. The cake we were looking
at. Intermarché has like a big, I don't know if this is what he's talking about. It has a big buffet kind of restaurant, and so you can get an enormous quantity of food for like €7.
Right, that's right. Because I was in one in Alcobaça the other day, and I had a massive lunch.
Yeah,
at the Prato do Dia there, which was skate wings and clams. It was really quite exotic. Caldadeira, I think it's called.
Yeah, I mean, they have different things. It's very Portuguese, so it's going to be, you know, pieces of pig and pieces of, you know, seafood mixed in. And but if you want to have it, it's a very solid meal, usually at a very reasonable price.
Absolutely. Good tip there. Excellent. And another thing that you can feed up teenage boys on is the cake we looked at just now with the eye. That is an unusual one. It does look like, you know, maybe a creature from Star Wars, doesn't it? But that will be the typical... Sorry, go on.
There's like this internet trend where people go through stores and they put googly eyes on things and then they take pictures of them. You know what googly eyes are? Those little white eyes.
Yeah. My kids are slightly younger than yours, and quite a lot of our paintings and pictures in the house have googly eyes on them now. And that would absolutely work with this foulard, the foulard de Pascua right there. So yes, don't forget to on those eggs. Don't forget to carry the googly eyes around for when you're next in Intermarché and you want to decorate the foulard or foulard de Pascua there. So thank you for being with us this morning, and thank you for your additional commentary on life in Portugal with teenagers. Before we go into you telling us about what you do in terms of working with business people here in Portugal, how long have you been here, and how's it going for you?
We're still babies. We have been here for 8 months. And we love it. It's been amazing. We've had a lot of, I guess we've had adventures, like traditional adventures, like traveling and going to castles. But we've also had some life adventures like surgery and taking care of elder parents and, you know, like having, you know, life happen while you're in a foreign country. Some people get a little bit more of a cushion after they move abroad before they have to deal with hardcore medical issues, but luckily we've still been very blessed. We've had great experiences, but I have gotten to know the Portuguese healthcare system pretty well.
So, I mean, Portuguese plot twist stuff. Obviously, you're not expecting that, but you've obviously had to get involved, and you've dealt with it well, and they've dealt with you fairly well by the sound of it.
I mean, we've had a good experience. You know, it's funny, in the US, healthcare is a mess. And so you have to kind of know how to get around the systems and who to call on this day. And so that same type of experience applies here. Yeah. In terms of
the hybrid
when you call who and how you get resources. But if, you know, and we're fortunate in that spending, say, 35 to 50 euros is not a life altering amount of money for us. And I know there's a lot of people in Portugal for whom spending 50, 60, 70 euros to get healthcare is a really big deal. And I don't want to discount their experience, because we all have, you know, to get healthcare. So, but if you can spend 30 to 50 euros, usually you can get seen pretty quickly. And I even I found how to do urgent care online on Christmas Day. So I've had all the experiences.
It sounds like you've become an expert in the short time you've been here, and unexpectedly. But with those sort of things, you just got to go with it, haven't you? And make the experience as you go, and find out what's going on. And so I'm sorry to hear that. But I'm as well as that, I'm glad to hear you've had a fairly good time of it, in how well you've been treated and how you've managed to engage with the system here.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've had really good healthcare, and I mean, I have to say that the groups, the community here is amazing in terms of support. Whether it's Facebook groups, Facebook I think is key to dealing with living in Portugal, and WhatsApp groups. But we had one night where somebody in my family needed medication in the middle of the night at like 11 o'clock at night. And it wasn't like a life emergency, like they weren't going to die, right? But they just needed medication now. And the pharmacies here do this thing where there's not like one 24-hour pharmacy. It rotates.
Yes.
So like Monday night, pharmacy A is open late, and Tuesday night, it's pharmacy B. And Right. So yeah, we have Serenity. They're amazing. They do not, however, answer the phone at 11 o'clock at night, as I learned.
Yeah, fair
So, but I had this group, this community of people that I had connected with through Facebook, and just, try to be a resource to other people when I can. And I'm on there at 11 at night on WhatsApp going, oh my God, I've driven all over town, and all the pharmacies that Google said were open aren't open. How do you find a pharmacy? And one of my friends, Heather Binder, who's actually been
I was
on
just
your
about to
show.
ask you if it was Heather. Yeah, she knows
Heather,
these things.
Heather was up, and she was my hero that night, because she was like, she knew how to find which pharmacy was open, and she tried to tell me how to do it, but I was like driving and it was raining and I was in my pajamas. And I said, can you just figure out which one it is, because I couldn't get like the app downloaded and stuff. And she did, and I was able to get down there, and weirdly, like, the whole city shut down, but there was like a line of people waiting in the rain for this one pharmacy because you had to wait outside.
Wow.
But we got our medication. It all worked out. But now I know. And there's an app called Farmacios de Serviço.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
And it gives you the 24-hour and holiday pharmacy in anywhere in Portugal.
What a brilliant resource. What a great thing to know about. So thank you for that.
So I always tell people about that. You have to get it, because you never know when you're going to need it. And it's nice because if you're in a different part of Portugal, like, of course, we were in Porto and my son got sick. We had to go get medicine. Yeah. But on a Sunday, I could go look up and see which pharmacies were open on Sunday, which ones are open Saturday evening, things like that, wherever you are in Portugal.
That's wonderful. So that's Farmacias de Serviço, is it?
Yeah, I can.
I think Antonio may well be able to help us out with that. That's
okay.
Superb. Great value already. Thank you, Cordelia, for that. Because that's
my pleasure.
It can feel desperate, can't it, when you find yourself in that situation late at night or in the middle of the night? And a little tip like that is a real godsend. So thank you for that. So on to your service that you're offering, your podcast, and how you're connecting with the business scene here in Portugal. Tell us about that.
Oh, glad to. So we have our own company, my husband and I. And I have a background doing YouTube shows. I love the fact that you have this awesome show. And I was trying to think about what kind of show I could start on YouTube that would help people here, help people moving. And I really, I didn't see a lot of content for people who are working here. There's a ton of content for people who retire here.
Yeah, true.
And so I started a YouTube channel called Global Professionals in Portugal. And it's a baby channel, so we're still growing. So please go find it and subscribe. And mostly every week I have an interview with a different professional here in Portugal. Really, it's not a salesy interview. It's them sharing their journey, what they've learned, what tips they would pass on to other people. And we've had people who are like us, where they're essentially operating a remote online business from here. We have people that have started, brick and mortars here in Portugal. And we have people like who went to school and got jobs. And so there's kind of all different ways to make a living while you're living here as a foreigner. And I'm going to be adding more and more features over time. But it's the interviews we've done already. We've had some really great people on. And in fact, a couple people mentioned Serenity Healthcare, which I love. We use them. They're awesome. But the CEO of Serenity was one of our guests, and he shared his entrepreneurial journey and how he started Serenity. So that's on there. So yeah, it's been really fun, and it's been a great way to meet really, really interesting, knowledgeable people.
Yeah, you're talking about Michael Averbook there, aren't you? Who I think is quite frank in his criticisms and observations about running a business in Portugal. Do you find that generally? I mean, to me, being perfectly frank here, that is the hardest part of Portuguese life, I would say. Running and growing a business here, it has been the biggest of all challenges. It's not easy. I think it's worth doing ultimately, and I think it's important to do it, but it's not an easy process. Is that a general view or feeling among people?
It is, and there's a lot of ambiguity around the tax situations with international business here. And so you'll have 5 different accountants tell you 5 different ways to handle it. And you have to basically pick the one that you're most willing to defend should you get audited. I mean, that's kind of the strategy, right? So, but yeah, doing a business where you're in Portugal and you have a Portuguese business, it definitely comes with a lot of hurdles and not a lot of support for. Now there's more, I would say, community support for businesses. It's growing. You have more like accelerators and things like that happening in Lisbon, Laia. We even have an accelerator here in Caldish. But in terms of like loans and financing and tax favorability, that definitely does not work in favor of small businesses here. That's what I've heard.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. And you know, some people will even say it's kind of like an anti-enterprise culture. It's not a treasured part of the national psychology, if you like. You know, good jobs are thought to be professional employed jobs, aren't they, or jobs with the government? And I think being an entrepreneur in Portugal has a slightly different treatment. What, from your observation in the short time you've been here, but having spoken to a lot of these people who are engaged on the front line, as it were, what do you think is needed?
Well, I would say that, you know, there's a thing when you run a business, they tell you should work on your business, not in your business, right? Like, so you should be managing your business, not doing all the day-to-day things. I feel like the Portuguese culture is almost like the opposite of that, where you see a lot of these like small restaurants that are run. Clearly the people that own it are there 12 hours a day, if not more, 6 days a week. And the reason why it's closed on Sunday is because they want a day off.
Yeah.
They close the whole place down for 2 weeks when they go on vacation. You know, those are people that are working in their business, not on their business, right?
Yeah.
Like and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's basically, it's a replacement for a job. It's not really a way to, at least in the US, there's a hope that you would use a business not just to pay your bills and eat, but to sort of grow your wealth.
Yeah.
And I don't think that mentality is inside of the Portuguese culture, at least in the older people. We're definitely meeting younger people that are more entrepreneurial.
Yes, agreed.
One of our really good friends here in Caldish, he owns a whole enterprise here, and he's Portuguese, and he's definitely doing all the amazing right things. So there's a lot of people that are really succeeding in spite of not having a lot of support. And I think that that's one of the things they say about entrepreneurs, that, you know, you're an entrepreneur if 10 people tell you can't do something and you go do it anyway.
Yes.
And Portugal will definitely put you to the test.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting, an interesting sort of irony, isn't it, as well, that that can-do attitude, the innovation, working around things is definitely a Portuguese ethic. No question about that. It's not about a lack of hard work, is it?
Oh, no.
There's definitely there's no absence of hardworking people, but perhaps it's more you know, an approach issue or a psychological issue here. Would you agree with me that, and I think, you know, from what you're saying, you might, it's one thing to have a job, isn't it? But if you start your own business, you have an exponential chance of becoming successful and wealthy, rather than if you work in a job. You know, the ceiling for the amount of work you can do and the amount of money you can earn is fairly level and obvious, and the way to accelerate, multiply that, is to have your own business. Would you recommend, from what you've heard, would you recommend that people still do that in Portugal, or just go get a job?
Well, I mean, I can't. It really depends on your life situation. So one thing I will say, because I have been in various places in my life where I've coached entrepreneurs as well, the worst place to be in as an entrepreneur, but also sometimes the best, is if you're hungry. Like, if you can't put food on the table. It's very hard to start a business when you cannot afford to eat.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's kind of an extreme example, but I'm saying that sometimes you need a job so that you can eat and have a roof over your head and have the things you need. And then you have to add a business owner. Maybe you do one business that's a little lower, you know, revenue generator, but it's steady income. And then you look at other businesses that are a little bit more, you know, it's rare to find the people that can make a lot of money regularly right away from the beginning. So it's very unusual. Like, usually you have to work up to it. So there is a reality that, you know, sometimes you just need to eat, right? So I think it really depends on the situation. And there's also a lot of talk about the hustle culture and, stop whining, hustle kind of mentality. But I can say, as somebody who has kind of dealt with some mental health issues and physical health issues over the years, it's all well and good to tell somebody to hustle 24/7. But sometimes, like, you're depressed, or you have anxiety, or you're tired, or you're sick, or you have kids that need you. And so I'm like, I did hustle. It's just I was taking care of my family. So the hustle idea is a little bit of a narcissistic one, in my opinion, that doesn't always work for every kind of person.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, I will ask you, if you can, to give us a little bit of a step-by-step on if somebody is interested in starting a business, how they might go about that here in Portugal. Your business value also chipping in. I think you might be connected.
That's my husband. Thank you, honey.
They need to make the golden visa, says husband, exclusively available for investments into operating businesses in Portugal. I personally completely agree with that. Inward investment, it seemed to work to some extent with property and real estate. Why not encourage inward investment into Portugal for growing businesses and employing people as well? Great idea, business value. And they should set up a program similar to the Small Business Administration lending program in the USA as well, supporting businesses. And responding to that, João de Norte says, good ideas, but not culturally doable in a political system that is philosophically not favorable to promoting business development. Now, we're coming back, aren't we, to the culture? And it might be that instead of asking for the government to do it, we have to do it and support each other as business people, as entrepreneurs. It might have to be a private sector thing. On this note, then, of considering that, of going into business, of being your own boss, even if it is to create your own job, but at least you are your own boss, and the friction will be with yourself and not another person. How would you advise people to start that process, Cordelia, here in Portugal?
I think that I was given some advice a long time ago that was really good advice, which is, I had this idea for a business. I'm like, I want to do this business. It doesn't even really matter what it was. And the advice I got was, well, go do it. Go sell your thing. Don't start the business. Don't whatever. See if you can get 3 people to buy that aren't your friends, that aren't just trying to support you. 3 total strangers to do your thing.
Yeah.
And you're either going to try to sell your thing to 3 total strangers who are going to go amazing, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is the business I need to be in. Or you're going to try to sell those to those, and you're going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to go well. They're not going to want to buy it. You're going to realize there's all these barriers that you hadn't thought of when you were super excited. So don't worry about making money for those first 3 sales. Your goal is simply to see what the process is of actually executing your business.
Yeah.
And so if you want to, like, one of Tom Jennings, I don't know if he's been a guest, he's a property inspector here, but I mean, he started out, he just did a few property inspections. Like, some of those first few clients, your goal is not to pay the bills. Your goal is to see if your business is viable.
To test the idea, basically. And
yeah,
see if
absolutely. And just do it.
It is easy to think you've got a good idea, isn't it? I mean, I don't think ideas are that difficult, actually. But and in our own minds, an idea can seem amazing, and of course, you're only going to find out if it's a good idea by trying to sell it to somebody else. Now, that's the kind of viability and the attractiveness of the idea to the general public. Nuts and bolts wise, what have you found? What do you think is required to actually set it up? What have these people said who you've interviewed? What have you found out yourself in that process?
Well, so it's going to depend a lot on where your citizenship is and where your residency is. But some people have international companies. So maybe they set up their operations in their home country and they run the business remotely from here. But of course, there's some legal issues with that. So you need to kind of, if you're going to operate a Portuguese business, my understanding is you need to have an accountant on the books. So you can't just say like, well, when I make a certain amount of money, I'm going to have an accountant to pay them. As soon as you register your LDA, I think it's called here, you have to have an accountant, which is like 200 or 300 euros a month just to have books.
Yeah.
And you can't just do your business for 6 months and then be like, oh, that was a bad idea, I'm going to shut it down and fire the accountant. Like you have to, there's also like a process to end the business. So that's a very simple overview of a process I do not have a deep understanding of. But I would say that make sure that you really understand all the money that's involved in both setting up and failing.
Agreed.
And so that you put that into your budget from the start. And then if you don't fail, great. But at least you know that you're not going to, I'm a big fan of not going hungry. So you're not going to go hungry because you just made a bad decision and you didn't do your research.
Yeah, well said. No, I would agree with that in outline there. And it's not just a simple matter of, the problem here is assuming it's the same here where you've come from, where you could just try something, turn over a bit of cash, see what's what, do it, don't do it. These things are very formal here in Portugal, quite the opposite. As you said before, sometimes things are completely opposite here, and it can be quite dangerous to make assumptions. I think James related to what you were saying about that sort of aspirational, slightly narcissistic business culture. Suck it up, get over it. Quitters are losers is a more American and others cultural attitude. I've not heard this one before. It's funny, but not if you're on the receiving end of it. Second place,
the first loser. Yes, that is very American. Yes.
Do your homework prior to a test, says Catherine. Thank you for joining us this morning, Catherine. Define your demographics, target audience, know the business of the business. Very good. Startups fail consistently due to poor financial planning. It sounds like we need Catherine on as well.
Absolutely. I want to meet you, Catherine.
We've definitely got some sort of gravity or momentum here when it comes to supporting people starting businesses. And I've always wanted to do this on the Good Morning Portugal show. Where my work is concerned, I don't believe in failure. If something isn't working, then deviate, change, and make it work. I have to think that way because I don't like running out of chocolate. So there you go. It's the hunger motivation again. And it sounds, Cordelia, like we might bring back, I had something called the Cockerel's Coop, which I think is the Portuguese version of the Dragon's Den. And you might like to come back and join us. If we have a panel and we can get people to pitch ideas in the morning here, I'm sure the Gumpers, our community, would be glad to constructively help people. Would you be interested in being involved in that?
Absolutely. In fact, my husband, if I may toot his horn a little bit, sorry, that sounded really dirty.
We're used to that here, don't worry.
I'm not going to put that on YouTube, but
yes, so I am.
he has actually been, he's an experienced pitch competition coach.
Oh, great.
And so he's actually coached a couple people who've gotten funding offers on Shark Tank. He's coached several pitch competition winners in the US. He's very excited by that. And so if you were going to do some kind of a pitch situation, he has a ton of experience with those. But yeah, we would be happy to help with that. And, if we wanted to even do one in person, we could do it potentially here on the Silver Coast.
Oh, how wonderful. We must, right? I think it's so... I think you're very sensitive to this, and you're aware of this balance of not wanting to be kind of a pushy foreigner, immigrant, expat. We need to be respectful of the country, the culture we're moving into. And I think in this area, there is something that the foreigners can bring in terms of encouraging, especially the young entrepreneurs in Portugal who perhaps might be open and hungry for this opportunity. It might be something that collectively we can help with. And you would think, wouldn't you, in economic terms, it's got to be a good thing as well. If that driver of the economy is encouraged, fostered, if new things are discovered, new business opportunities, new partnerships, new networks come together, that's got to be a good thing for the economy and the culture and excitement in the growth of Portugal, you would think.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm obviously completely new and I have no opinion on the upcoming election here in Portugal, but obviously whatever the election is, and it will have an impact on business potentially. And I do think that there's been some talk that I've read about shifting the Golden Visa program away from real estate investment to investment in business. And I personally think that's a very good idea. I think if you want to get that that investment because I think the SBA type situation, the Small Business Administration type situation in the US, is limited because it's all loans.
Yeah.
And a lot of governments like give the same kind of startup financing to like individual solopreneurs as they would give to companies. And that really feeds the economy. So there's a lot of opportunity to invest in Portugal. There's so many amazing, talented people here.
Yes.
That live, that are from Portugal. There's amazing talent everywhere, and people that are moving here. And Portugal is going to be a really interesting melting pot in 20 years, right? Because
absolutely, and that in itself, is an exciting business opportunity landscape, isn't it? For sure. Okay, a few more comments then before you go. Sorry, I'm keeping you past 10 o'clock here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been great chatting with you. You want to succeed? That will cost you so many euros. Oh, you need to fail. That will all also cost you.
That's right. I mean, that is definitely what I have heard is that, like I said, if you're going to fail your business, you need to budget for that too. If you want to fire people, you have to pay to fire them. I mean, it's definitely a different culture here in terms of what we're used to.
Foreigner Paul Rees said, never, ever employ anyone. And that's a sad thing to hear, because wouldn't it be great to employ people?
But I've interviewed several people on the show, and I know people personally that have hired people very successfully here. So, I'm sure. I think that for some people that, it's really hard to hire people. Other people have a really good way of vetting people and creating a nurturing environment. But obviously, anything you do in life, there's risk. Whether so you have to kind of decide what your risk tolerance is.
Yes, for sure. Yes, I've been in business development for over 15 years, as well as strategic and negotiation business coach, both in the New York City and global markets. Thank you, Catherine, for being here this morning.
Wonderful. Catherine, I would love to connect with you if you want to reach out on social.
Yeah, I can mediate that if necessary. If you can't find it in the larger landscape, if you are in a position to continue doing your home country's work when you move here, I guess that would be primarily remote work. It is much simpler to earn an income from the get-go.
Yeah.
I sent a story out to our Portugal Club Mastermind members about a chap who's bought a village, or half of one, in the north. We can all help to buy half a village if we can raise 100,000. Responding to that link, see the Portugal News, the link that I sent out last night. I was blessed to have such a business, self-employed, and know a college professor who is teaching his courses remotely to US students as well. That's nice. Cultural sensitivity, embracing the differences in collaboration to achieve mutually beneficial, profitable business propositions. Have some fun with it as well. Thank you very much. And the best of both worlds equals one humanity. We definitely want to speak to Catherine, don't we, Cordelia? It's not hard to hire, it's hard to fire. Yes. And yes, Carl, give her my contact information. So that's on that meeting there. Cordelia, thank you so much. Let's just have one last look at the Easter cake. That's in the post.
Okay, it's looking at you too.
We get the googly eyes, and the mere mention of that has Darren saying up there in Porto, no, not them cakes again. So it looks like he's not a fan of the Easter cake here in Portugal.
Is the egg? It must be hard boiled, right? It's
hard-boiled eggs. The eyes are hard-boiled eggs in there, yeah, and it's not a Star Wars.
That's definitely feels a little bit like an acquired combo, cake and hard-boiled eggs. I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
You don't sound like an immediate fan, I have to say. How do people subscribe to the YouTube channel you mentioned and find out more about you? Where should they go?
So I'm super easy to find because I just use everything in my name. So my Instagram, LinkedIn, everything is just Cordelia Blake. My business website is highscorestrategies.com. And then if you just go to Global Professionals in Portugal on YouTube, that's our channel. We also have a Facebook page, a LinkedIn page. And if you just reach out to me on any social, I will try to respond and give you whatever support I can and connect you.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you to Fabrizio. Get well soon, Ali. You can get the new edition of Snapshot Magazine now online. And thank you to you, Cordelia. I hope you'll come back and join us again on the show.
I would be happy to.
Okay, and tune in tomorrow for the absolute Portuguese legend who is Genuino Madruga. We'll be talking to him in the Açores with Tia Filomena. It's Filomena Friday tomorrow. And see you tonight on the Expats Portugal webinar as well. We'll be talking to some just landed new arrivals. Have a great day. Take care and bye for now. Ciao, ciao.